What's on, minifans? We're back to doing some Zone Mortalis tiles today. I loved the look of the Toxic Dump I did previously, so I wanted to do something relatively similar, using a bit more resin. And this is the results. If you like anything in the video, feel free to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to stay up to date with my content. I have some affiliate links down in my description below. So Amazon ones for my most used items, and then a couple of hobby stores, one for the EU and one for US. So they give you a decent discount on all your hobby gear. Alrighty, enough of this, let's get on to crafting. You'll notice to the side straight away there's a big old pile of the archways I made before and the Zone Mortalis tiles. So I've cast a load in UV resin over the last day or two. But what we're doing now, we're making the sort of framework of this tile. So I've got a 30 by 30 centimeter board as plywood, and then I'm cutting XPS foam. So the strips, what I'm doing 4 strips the same. So these are the outsides. They're 4.5 centimeters wide and then 25.5 long. So when you join 2 of them together, it makes the side 30 centimeters. And then the 4.5 is because the tiles are 5 centimeters, but then the archways are 5 mil wide. So that recessed in will go underneath the tile. And then the central square is 9 centimeters by 9 centimeters. And then what I do is mark out where they're going to go on the board and just glue them down with PVA. And I use cocktail sticks to secure the joins. So the plan is to have tiles all around the edges on that XPS foam and then 4 in the center. But then I want a kind of little tiny walkway on 2 ends, opposite ends of that central square joining to the outside tiles. So I'm just using chipboard for this. So initially I make a kind of base which is going to sit against the walls. And that's 4.5 centimeters tall. And it needs to make 5 mil to match the depth of the archways. So I've used 2 pieces of chipboard, one 3 mil, one 2 mil. Glue those together, smaller bit on the front, and this way I'm going to do 2 arches either side of this, and they can sit on that extra little strip of chipboard I put on here. And then the walkway above is pretty simple. It's 2.5 centimeters wide, 5 centimeters long, and I've done 2 levels. This is just 2 mil chipboard, one with the center cut out, and I put in a bit of granny grating. So I just glue all these together with Mod Podge. I have to jump back and forth a little bit with this project in terms of painting and assembling, because some bits have to be painted before getting glued into place, because they'd just be too hard to get to. But anyway, what I've done a bit off camera here. So I've used some filler, filled any gaps on the XPS foam, especially around the inside edge, because I do not want any leaks with the resin pour later. I've also I've coated everything in Mod Podge so I can use super glue on the XPS foam without melting it. But what I've done, I've primed the sort of inside area black, and then I've base coated the inner walls grey, and that's where the arches will go, because it's just going to be too hard to get to that otherwise. And then you'll notice I've put some marks on the sort of inner XPS foam square on either side, and then the outer walls opposite those. And this is the center, so it's where those little chipboard markers are going to go, which is what I'm going to do now. So I glue them in with Mod Podge. Honestly, I shouldn't have done this bit now. I should have got everything painted first. But, hey ho, I make things difficult for myself. What I've got is a couple of lengths of PVC pipe, and I've put some of those hair curler things around the ends, and then one of them I've sort of hacked. I initially started off with a razor saw, just getting an initial hole, and then I used clippers to just cut out this big gash, because I want this to be like a toxic leak. So that's what that pipe will be. And then I've got a couple of those kids pipes, and what I've done, I wrapped some sandpaper round one of those tubes, the PVC tubes, and then rubbed that kids pipe along that until you get a nice sort of curve, so it fits really beautifully onto there. And I cut the bottoms at a bit of an angle, so I've done one of these kids pipes for each of the PVC pipes, and I've sanded them down because the paint won't stick otherwise, so they're nicely sanded. So I glue all this in with super glue. I don't actually measure anything, I just do it by eye and get it pretty much bang on. I've cut a few pieces of granny grating, and these get glued in next to the chipboard piece on the inner square of XPS. Just use super glue for this, so there's 2 on either side. Now, unlike my normal projects, I barely do any rivets on this one, mainly because they're all already cast with the resin tiles and arches. But those 2 little chipboard walkways we've made, I do 1 rivet each corner, and then I do a few on the kids' pipes where it joins onto the PVC pipe. So I'm just using the fingernail beads, bit of blue tack on the end of a cocktail stick, pick one up, dip it into super glue, and then whack it into place. Repeat, boom, boom, boom. As I say, I do jump sort of forwards and backwards with this build, but what I've done off camera is prime all the resin pieces and those 2 little walkways, primed them black, base coated burnt umber, and then I go ahead and give them a heavy dry brush of dark silver, a light dry brush of light silver, so that's for the arches, the tiles, and those little walkways, and then I do a few bits which will be metallics in, the actual XPS foam piece. And then after that's all dried, I sponge in some burnt umber, so on the arches it'll, a bit of dirt, and then also on the grey wall sections on the XPS foam. Alright, we're on to assembling now. So I start off by gluing the 2 arches on the central square, either side, adding the tiles on top, then the little walkways, and then all the tiles around the outside. And I use a combination of PVA and super glue to hold it in place. Onto some base coating. I'm sorry if I go out of shot a few times here. It's quite awkward to do because it's quite a big piece now. But I base coat the pipes a sort of darkish red, and then I base coat the bottom of the whole thing dark green. And then the corner tiles on one of the corners on the outside part, I paint those black in preparation for hazard stripes. And I then, after that's dried, I mask them off with 5mm masking tape, and I also do a strip down one of the pipes, and then before doing the hazard stripes I paint that masking tape black again so I seal all the edges. And peeling time. I peel the ones off the hazard stripes, no leaks, perfect. Peel the one off the pipe, no leaks, but unfortunately one of the end pieces, the masking tape really stuck down. It actually peeled some of the paint off, so I have to touch that up again with a primer and then that red. And then for the hazard stripes, I sponge on flesh tone, wait for that to dry, then sponge on yellow over the top. And peeling time. I peel the ones off the hazard stripes, no leaks, perfect. Peel the one off the pipe, no leaks, but unfortunately one of the end pieces, the masking tape really stuck down. It actually peeled some of the paint off, so I have to touch that up again with primer and then that red. Onto the most tedious part of this build, and that's painting the grey on the tiles. So I do all the tiles, the centre bits, a lightish grey, which does take ages because I don't want to get any on the metal parts. And then after that's dried, I do like a light dry brush of white in the centre of each tile, just trying to get a nice sort of gradient of colour. And then I just give the whole thing a dousing of my homemade black wash, and then I dab some off, especially the tiles, especially any light bits. I dab some off with some kitchen towel. Onto weathering and rust now. So I sponge on burnt umber in various places for the metal bits where it's going to be rust, and then just on some of the tiles and the coloured bits just to give a bit of, sort of dirt and grime. And then the bits which will be rust, I sponge on orange over the top. So we're on to the resin pour now. And although I thought I had got every potential place for leaks with filler and Mod Podge, it's always a concern. I don't want to get resin anywhere, especially on the floor in a rented apartment. So my painting old tablecloth, I like put in some XPS blocks around the sides, so I made kind of a container for the whole tile in case it leaks. But anyway, yeah, I've mixed up some resin, and I just get some darkish green paint, mix it in, just standard acrylic paint. I do that resin pour, realise it's not quite enough, but that was all the new resin I had. I had some old resin, which I wasn't sure if it's okay or not, but I decided I'm going to have to use it, so I mixed up a bit more, pour that in. I did pour from a fairly decent height, so I haven't got that many bubbles, but there are a few. So I just go in with one of those kind of blowtorch lighters and pop all those bubbles. And then I just use some light green acrylic paint, squeeze some in various places, and then swish it around with a coffee stirrer, so it makes a nice sort of gradient with the colours. And that's it. Then it's just waiting for the whole thing to cure. And that's the project complete. Luckily there were no leaks with the resin. Very pleased. Yeah, I was a little worried about this one. I don't know, there was just a feeling that it was going to leak everywhere. I actually got up in the middle of the night just to come and check the office where it's curing, just making sure there's no leaks, and yeah, there were no leaks. So, yep, all done. Love the look of this resin toxic waste. I'll probably, well, maybe. I'll maybe do another project with this later. Probably not tiles like this, though. But, yeah, as you can see, here's some photos of a finished piece. Turned out really nicely. Goes really well with the other tiles. Alrighty, so I think that's it from me for this time. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers for now.